Hello world, Clinton here. We're going to continue with our summary of my application of the theories of Marshall McLuhan to modern day computing. And I'm doing this because I think it's a helpful way to look at internet culture and culture in general and how people's identities are being formed in a way from a different grounding, from a technological use grounding, and not an identity trait based grounding. All right, it's a fresh perspective. So I'm going to talk about hearing through your eyes and talking with your fingertips, because that's what I do all day. And I never quite realized how weird it was until I read Marshall McLuhan. And you see, he talks about how the printing press normalized silent reading. So if you think about oral culture, people just talking to each other face to face, like I'm trying to pretend I'm doing here to this stupid video camera. I'm still sitting in a room by myself. It still feels very unnatural, right? But here I am talking and being emphatic as though there's someone looking at me going, nodding, going, right? It was just what you're doing, right? I'm sure. But it's with the printing press, so it's only a couple hundred years that people at large have learned to internalize a voice in their head which is disconnected from them actually speaking, right? That's what typographical man is, according to Marshall McLuhan. And that's sort of what it's like to be on the internet, reading a lot. Because, come on, most of the time what you're doing, most of the time what I'm doing, I should be specific, is reading and typing, all right? I'm not in video conversations all the time. And modems have only been around for a few decades, readily available, are what normalized instant textual conversation. So it's conversation, talking to people live, talking through your fingertips, hearing through your eyes. See, Marshall McLuhan makes a big deal about what he calls sensory ratios, or our sensorium, right? Because our minds are constantly integrating the multiple different streams of incoming senses. Our eyesight is different from hearing, is different from touch, and then just sniffing and licking. But Marshall McLuhan makes it pretty explicit. He thinks that when the mind is working at these different inputs at different ratios, or when you're expressing or communicating yourself differently, equilibrated to certain mediums, that these are states that you're moving between inside, right? It takes work to learn how to read. It takes work to train yourself to sit still and stare at a television screen, right? Like when I play video games, like I'm a real noob, so like I lean into them sometimes. When you're like playing a game, like right? And that's a noob thing to do. You got to learn not to do that, right? See what I'm saying? So learning to use an interface, to interface with a medium, be it a computer or a book or anything else, is going to involve different ways of interacting. But computers, they offer whole access to communities and cultures with whom you are communing as a stream of text. So you can, spend years as part of a vibrant online community when your body is sitting there still and your fingers are going, right? Like that, like the WoW episode of South Park, right? And building up a nice sense of identity in that way, in that state. It's kind of like learning to dance while only watching dance videos while going, and you're like, yeah, I'm learning to dance. But it's like, no, your body, right? No, you're not, because you're not, right? There's a gap between your mind and your body. And I found, all right, it's been a large social roadblock to talk about all the stuff I do online, just because it's difficult to even hear yourself speak about the most weirdest topics ever that were perfectly normal for you to be typing about. Because on the internet, there's so many people that you can find a whole bunch of people who are into just that thing, and you all talk about it like it's normal, right? Whatever that may be. I'm trying to be as general as possible. But then, do you even hear yourself like going around, That's a major barrier to social integration, is to feel embarrassed or awkward to even say out loud to someone in casual conversation. Large swaths of the world as you have been perceiving it or sensing it through a mediated form, never really speaking about, right? And I feel like if you want to talk about social alienation or with recent events anyway, you can think about internet cultures that have strong resentment towards identity groups, and you can just sit around and compare statistics and do analysis or analyze laws and unfairness and parodies of whatever measurements of such to such, and come up with whole elaborate systems of oppression or whatever based on apparent. See, the thing about empirical data is it's readily available for certain things, but we don't have any empirical data on most of the things in life. But when it's easy to get data, it's easy to frame a whole worldview based on the data you have. And I think staying in that one particular zone and talking about it all day, it just shrinks your mind so much, and you don't know it because you don't hear yourself, right? People who are obsessed over an idea that they argue about divorced from their body, you need to round yourself out, And Marshall McLuhan makes a big point. There's a whole chapter in Understanding Media, Narcosis as Narcosis, I believe it is, and where talks about numbness or amputation of your body parts to then move those senses out of the body parts into the medium, right? So when you're invested or pulled into a screen and you learn to numb your body, you actually are numb, right? And I'm sure people with, who watch movies to, get out of themselves for a little while, maybe to ignore actual pain or something, might appreciate the value of how a good movie or how a good video game can take away your worries and cares, right? And that's very useful. Conversely, people who only do that might have social anxiety, right? Internet communities are out-of-body experiences. If you're numb in your body because your mind is invested in something that's outside of you, right? Which is really inside of you, right? This is just a whole bunch of pixels. It's a bunch of, circuits rapidly flickering millions and millions times a second, creating something that my mind puts meaning to, right? I feel like there's meaning in the computer, but that's an illusion. This is just a bunch of black and white dots, right? This is just a bunch of ink splattered on paper. The meaning is in you, right? It's a shorthand. It's kind of a trick that we say when there's something in a book, right? No, there's ink on paper, but the meaning in a book is being created as you take it in, sensorially, right? It's built up through the interplay of your sensorium, right? So, internet communities are out-of-body experiences. If all of your senses are put together, creating this elaborate world which exists, supplanting the actual world of you sitting at a desk staring at a screen, right? And furthermore, with the textual medium where you're talking through your fingertips and hearing through your eyes, right? It's like conversation. We've always had oral conversation. People sitting around a campfire for generations and generations telling stories and stuff. But now you can have that sense of community, involvement, someone who understands me, have an intelligent discussion or an argument or debate, arguing back and forth. Feeling, connected to other human beings without most of the sensory input, right? The faces and the talking and the texture of the voice, the sonorities, I think is the word. All that stuff. And if you build up thoughts and beliefs and systems of ideas, right, then you can, in a particular body state, I'm being very explicit here, right, of numbness of your body and it's all in your head, then you have a rich inner imagination which might not have a form of expression in your body, right? So, I'm thinking about this. Let's say someone watches 6 hours of television and then plays 2 hours of video games every day, right? Let's take 10 people like that. Okay, if 9 of those people spend the other 8 hours in a day, doing stuff, having a life, then they're okay. If one person, spends the other waking 8 hours of their life just jonesing to get back to their real life online or in a video game, then those are people who are gonna be not fit in their own bodies, right? Like, what are you doing? What world in your head are your senses taking in and putting together all day? And is that balanced with one where, you could walk around in the immediate world? Who is immediate you? This is like a thought experiment. Something I've been applying to myself, first and foremost. I'm like my own laboratory here, trying to figure this stuff out. Let's say that for like 3 years of your life, you didn't use any electronic media, or maybe even didn't read books that much. So now you're stuck. Let's say you don't travel, right? You're stuck in the couple square kilometers, radius, the area that you live. And all you can do is go around talking to all the people who live around you. Get to know them face to face, social contact, right? Like, you would grow into a person who had to face yourself in the eyes of others and hear yourself speak and live through the human face to face interactions only, just like we evolved as animals, right? Empathizing with people, right? And some people would have no problem with that. Like, it might be inconvenient, but it's like, yeah, I'm a sociable person. I can talk to people, shake hands. The people who would have a hard time with that, who, only feel really comfortable when they're living in a electronically mediated state, or all of who they are, who am I, is all invested within, this electronic cyber surround somehow, whether it's a common social one online or whether it's some weird niche group of outcasts and nobody really talks to very much, right? Like, whatever it is, just who is immediate you? Who is you in the body, in the flesh, walking around doing stuff all day, reflected in the eyes of others? Like, other people, two people talking or more, though, establish a flow, a pattern, right? And you see yourself in how other people respond to you, and overcoming social anxiety entails, if you have it, I think, I'm speaking from my own experience here, a large part of it is building up an understanding of slowly coming to grips with the self-awareness of being, like, gawky or awkward or whatever, right? Like, weird. And other people noticing it, and you being able to tell that they notice it, and then you learning to see yourself reflected in the eyes of others as, someone who is socially, underdeveloped, right? And then you just work through that. And that's why I said years in this thought experiment, right? Now, I've got a good customer service face. I've done customer service for a long time. But that's in lieu of being able to, geek out about computer stuff. And I do, but not enough, right? So that's kind of what this is. It's just trying to develop a way to even speak about it. But also to share the idea of filling yourself out, right? If you got a head full of stuff that's invested in media, then filling yourself up with immediate things is, right, hobbies, clubs, going out, talking to people, doing things that don't involve media. But no movies, no video games. We're talking like play a sport, build a, insert blank here, and anything. The more time you can fit in, living immediately, then you can create a new sensory equilibrium, a comfort zone to being yourself in the flesh. So, obviously, this whole YouTube video is about meticulously over-explaining things that are very obvious. I think I just spent like 15 minutes saying, hey, put down the screen and get a life, right? But The advice, hey, get put on a screen and get a life, is insufficient for someone who, typing through their fingers, right, who has bootstrapped a whole million reasons in your head, right, a logical flow, a conscious flow of a whole world of a social life built on words that they can type, but they have a different voice speaking out loud, and they never find anyone with the same interests. No one like me around me. The only friends I have, the only place I go out to try to find, people like me on the internet. Okay, well, guess what? If you only do that, and you don't round yourself out with a bunch of other interests that are shared by the other people around you, your culture, your society, you might be, painting yourself into a corner, so to speak. And talking to and engaging with people who are very typographically wordy, a million rationalizations, reasons they've been reading debates and arguments on the internet like I have. I'm explaining myself here. Talking, there's a million pretzel knots of talking to be undone here. And so I'm choosing to use video and this medium of YouTube to demonstrate, talk about concepts which most people only read, right? It's like, no. Look, here I am. You can talk about stuff too. That's what I'm trying to demonstrate. So, I think I'm getting better. Like, honestly, this sitting in a room by yourself, talking at a camera, trying to act like you're having a conversation thing, I'm finding it much more difficult than I anticipated. It's still awkward as hell. But, no, this is great. And we'll keep it up. And Silicon Crib this. I'm cherry picking some last little bit of footage. It's coming out soon. Okay. Take care.